Hey, welcome everyone. My name is Mike McQueen, and I'm so excited to invite you to the podcast for the love of libraries, empowering librarians to lead with confidence in the age of AI. I'm so excited to introduce Richard Culatta. Richard, thanks for joining us.
Hey, I'm so glad to be here. This will be fun.
All right, Richard, if you could just kick us off with tell us a little background about yourself. Some people, surprisingly, probably only just one or two in the United States, really may not know much about you. Uh, so tell us about your
Anybody
background.
outside of my direct family and you may have never heard of me, so that's okay.
Yeah,
We'll just
right.
start here.
Yeah, right.
Uh,
Two
so
two
so
aspects. Two aspects. Your professional background, and then also your AI. A little bit of background with AI. Can you?
okay, sure. So professional background. I long time ago was a teacher. I taught high school Spanish and pre-service teachers. Had a chance to work in policy, education policy in the Senate and at the U.S. Department of Education. And now am very honored to lead ISTE and ASCD, two great organizations that have recently come together to bring together technology and curriculum and instructional leadership, which is exciting. My personal interests revolve a lot around how we can help young people be healthy members of a digital world. I wrote a book called Digital for Good: Raising Kids to Thrive in an Online World. So that's a bit about me. From an AI side, I was an early nerd with AI, adopting and using it early on. But we do a lot of work around preparing teachers, educators, librarians in AI. ISTE+ASCD is actually the largest provider of teacher professional development for AI. And we've created our own AI tools to help educators, use AI in interesting ways. And we have a goal. We've just set a goal to prepare 200,000 teachers in the next 2 years. And I should say educators, right? So teachers in the classroom, also a variety of educators in schools, to be thinking about using AI in ways that help people be better at being human. That's the shift that we're trying to make, and
Mhm.
so
Right,
that's the
right.
work that we have going on.
That's right. Well, it's we're recording this. Anyone that's watching later on, we're recording this in July of 2025, and I just came back from the National ISTE AS/ASCD conference, and oh my
Yeah.
goodness gracious! I mean, it was quite impressive. And Richard, like I was just proud of you when I saw you up on stage in front of 16,000 people. The screens, I mean, how many feet long was
It's a
that
big
screen?
TV screen, yeah, several hundred feet long. It was
Oh yeah.
making the slides, on your PowerPoint on your computer. You have to make it looks like about an inch wide and then tall and
Yeah.
then wide enough.
Yeah, I have a cute picture of you. Look like a tiny little ant compared to that big screen with
Yes.
all the people because I was just kind of
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
back or whatever. So, all right. Well, tell us a little bit about ISTE. I mean, you've been working a lot on the profile of an AI graduate.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about what that is, and how does that work, or what's it
Yeah,
about?
so this is our attempt to shift the conversation a bit. We have been largely having conversations about AI, and that's really important. We actually really need to learn about AI. We need to know how it works. We need to know when, what the bias is in the data, how to fact check information that we get out of it. We need to understand what it's good at, what it's not good at. Like all of those things are learning about AI, and we'll continue to do that. We teachers need to learn about AI, students need to learn about AI. We all need to learn about AI. But that in and of itself is actually not going to help us be ready for the future world that we are moving very quickly into. There's another conversation that we need to have, which is what are the skills, what are the human skills that we need to get better at doing with AI,
Mm,
right? So one conversation is about AI, the other is doing things that are important with AI as a tool that can help us. That's the part of the conversation we're just not having as much. And so
mm,
this profile of an AI ready graduate, which we recently posted, is an attempt to say, here are some elements, here are some things that we expect, that we believe students need to be able to do, need to be able to demonstrate competency in by the
mhm,
time they graduate. And there are things like, um, ideation. Can they use AI to help them brainstorm? It turns out humans are very good at a lot of things. Brainstorming is not something that we are great at, in part because our brains have all of our life context, all of the
right.
things that make us amazing people. actually make it hard for us to come up with ideas that we've never experienced before.
Yeah.
AI is very
Well,
good at that. AI can generate lots and lots and lots of ideas. And so,
uh-huh.
so one of those human roles is knowing how to use AI as a brainstorming partner. Another one, and obviously you can go and search and find them all. I won't go through all of them, but just to give one more
Yeah, yeah.
example of this, an example of a storyteller, right? It is really important that we know how to use AI to capture hearts and minds around important ideas, right? Whether that's a concept that we want to be helping people to understand more deeply, or that's data that we want to have land with more meaning. And again, unless you're an amazing artist, that can be hard to do. And usually, when you tell a compelling story, it's more than just text, right? Sometimes it's text, but often it involves a video or an image or
Right, right.
some maybe a song, right? And so this idea of one of the profiles, one of the elements of an AI ready graduate is somebody who knows how to use AI to create, to craft a compelling narrative, a compelling story in a format other than text. And so
Um,
these are the sorts
it,
of things that we need to be thinking about.
I mean, that's awesome. Um, I just first heard about the portrait of an AI graduate at the conference when you
Yeah.
spoke. That was the first time I heard it, and my manuscript for my book is due just in a couple of weeks, and I wrote an entire chapter about AI storytelling. So it's
Ah,
really like it's. So let me ask you
I
a
love it.
question that relates to that, though. It's really unbelievable. It's probably one of the most passionate topics that I have in my book, but and I'm a super tech nerd too, so that's, but the issue that a lot of people have, I think, is they can get overwhelmed with all of the possibilities for with AI storytelling. There's so many tools, there's so many techniques. Just digital storytelling in general can be, a lot for some people if they haven't experienced it before. So what are your thoughts about that? Like the overwhelm of all the possibilities and what you can learn and what you can do.
Well, they should read your book, first of all. That'll help. That'll help help give some good places to start and give some clarity.
Yeah.
But I do think I think the great part about this is we don't have to know anything, everything. We
Mm.
can't know everything, right?
Right,
I
right.
often joke about people who say they're AI experts, and I just laugh
I
because
know.
they're lying.
Yeah.
Because nobody's an
Yeah.
AI
I
expert. The
know.
people that are building AI aren't AI experts, right?
That's funny. I wrote about
We're
that too.
we're
A
all
little
right. We're
bit,
all
just a little.
figuring this
Yeah.
out. I
Yeah.
and so I think knowing that in some ways can take some of the pressure off, right?
Hmm.
Don't try to know everything. Nobody can know everything. Nobody is going to know everything. Instead, let's just find these sort of key areas and just try to experience how AI can help us better. And you mentioned storytelling, which is one that gets forgotten a lot. And I think that's a really helpful area to explore. And so, say you just explore that, get more comfortable with that. Awesome, like that's great. It's about giving yourself space to explore, but also pushing yourself to explore, and not just I think one of my biggest worries when it comes to AI is that people will just use it like a search engine.
Mm,
AI is actually a terrible search engine. It really
mm.
doesn't search the web well. It's not intended to do that well. And so pushing beyond to try to ask new questions and get new insights out of it, that's really where the magic is.
Yeah. You mentioned ideation. I mean, I've always considered myself really creative, and I love brainstorming but yeah, AI just is really good at certain things, and I feel like I still have that. I'm sorry, we're backtracking a little bit here, but I feel like you know, AI has the ability to enhance skills that we might already have. Or,
Yeah.
of course, if we don't have certain skills, but so that kind of spills over into a lot of different areas. Let's talk about the role of librarians.
Hmm.
AI is, the heart of my book is trying to empower librarians to become leaders in AI. So, from your perspective in education, what do you see in library land and the role that librarians might be able to play?
So
Uh,
I love the question. I love that this is what you're focusing on. I think, and I have said this many, many times, that librarians are sort of the secret weapon in this whole transition, right? I was talking to a school leader the other day, and we are talking about moving into this new world and how there needs to be support for educators and students and how to do it. And he said, what we really need is somebody who has some space in the building where it's okay to test out some stuff, who understands how to curate good materials, good media, who has the ability and time to connect with teachers, who is able to recognize good content when they see it. And can think creatively and where could we find this person, right? Who could that be, right?
Right.
And like right across the hall is the library with the librarian who checks all of those boxes, right? If we know
Hmm.
people who are creative and good at recognizing, curating is the word I like to use, like curating good material, right?
Yep.
Whatever the source is, those are skills that we need right now, and librarians are just that's what they have in their DNA. And so
Yeah.
I actually think that a successful transition into thinking about AI effectively in school really isn't possible without having a really good librarian at the
Mm.
middle of that, helping to push thinking about what are the questions that we're asking. I mean, that's another area that librarians are really good at is helping
Hmm.
ask good questions. And for years, it's been questions related to books, which is super important. But that same idea of asking a question and thinking about where and how you can get an answer, that's a skill that we need modeling if we're going to be using AI effectively. And librarians know how to do that better than anybody.
Right, right. You know, one of the things I love so much about the ed tech world is the innovative mindset, ability to embrace new technologies and challenges and all that. And it's not always easy. In for a lot of librarians, like the ethics involved are really a hot topic. Like I think it's holding a lot of people back because, and when I went to the ISTE conference, I was just so impressed at how there was like no holds barred. We are going forward. We need to embrace AI. And what are your thoughts about, that concern that so many people have that relate to all the different problems and ethical dilemmas related to it, compared to being like not embracing it?
Sure. Look, I mean, there are ethical challenges for real. Like nobody's saying that there are not, right? We definitely need to be thinking about I think one of the biggest ones is what are uniquely human skills that we should never be handing off to AI. The flip side is also true. When would it be irresponsible to do something that AI can do better, right? So like
Right,
there's some
right.
ethical
Yeah.
questions there. There's a lot still swirling around this idea of cheating, which I think is a really interesting one. I think a lot of cheating, the real core issue has nothing to do with AI. We have data that
Mm.
shows that the rate of cheating has not increased since AI has become available, right?
Yeah.
What that comes down to is bad assessment, right? Like,
Right.
but so there's all of this. There are real issues, right? And we can list many more even than just those few. The challenge is that not being part of using AI does not help address those issues. In fact, it makes you much worse
Mm.
at
Yeah,
addressing
yeah.
and dealing with those issues when you don't have familiarity with the tools and with the capabilities.
Right,
It's a
right.
little bit like, for somebody to say, for an educator to say today, yeah, I'm just not sure about this AI thing. It's a little bit like saying, yeah, I'm just not sure about electricity. I'm gonna just like, I'm not sure. Like that, we're
Right.
not in that world anymore. And and
Yeah,
and
right.
like electricity, there are dangers with electricity. We have to make sure we are not doing things that get us electrocuted, that we have safety measures in place that don't burn the building down. But
Hmm.
nobody is saying, hi, I don't know, like maybe we'll think about whether we use electricity in our school. And
Yeah.
that's, I think, where we're at with AI. And the people who will be most powerful at shaping ethical use of AI are those who understand deeply how AI works.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean it's pretty amazing at how fast things are progressing, and the ability for people to embrace it is so important. So I imagine that you get accused, as I do quite often, of just being, like kind of blind to like embracing AI and like not confronting some of the challenges with it and maybe rushing into it. Maybe that's kind of what I'm looking for. People like might say, "Oh yeah, it's Mike again, he's that tech guy, that AI stuff." But how do you what do you say to people to kind of derail that thinking?
I mean, bluntly, I will say the most damaging thing we can do for kids is be late to the game on talking through how to use AI effectively.
Mm,
And I think about this with social media. Again, the book that I wrote is really focused on how do we create healthy digital conditions for kids. And
mm,
part of why we are in such a mess right now is because we were really slow. We were really slow to say, hey, how do we set healthy norms for
mm.
using technology? We were really slow to talk about when and how it was appropriate to use social media, and we're paying the price for that, right? And
Yeah,
and now,
right.
fortunately, I think we're evolving to a place where we have healthier balance. I think we're a lot of work still to go. That is an experience that I don't want to go through again. I don't want to go
Mm,
through again the experience where we just sort of sit back, let AI do what it's going to do, let it evolve into a thing where it's telling us how to be human, and then go, whoa, we have a big problem. How do we fix it? Right? We know the playbook to fix it. The playbook to fix it is to be very much at the
mm.
outset talking about when and where and how AI is being used, shaping these tools, giving feedback to make them better in the right ways, giving feedback to call out the ways that they're not working, preparing and modeling for kids when
Yeah,
it's appropriate and not appropriate. Like those
yeah.
are the ways that we create the future that we want. It is literally a self-fulfilling prophecy. If we say, oh, we're just going to sit this one out, I can
Hmm.
guarantee you it will
Hmm.
be a version of an AI future that we will not want to live in.
Right,
But
right.
if we're all in and say we are going to do this right, we're going to talk about it, we're going to understand where the pros and cons are, we're going to be part of this conversation. If we do AI right, educator fingerprints will be all over it, and it will
Yeah,
create a world that will be, I think, one that will be a much very exciting place to live and to solve problems and to work and to collaborate. But that requires us to be engaged.
yeah. Well, so the chapter that I'm gonna like integrate our conversation with is about education, and I started off talking about the impact that AI has on the future of work. And that's another piece of the importance of why we can't sit back and wait because our
Yeah,
students are entering the workforce right now, needing skills and to think about what that's going to be like in a few years. It's only the need to understand and be engaged is only going to keep growing
sure.
as the world of work changes. Um, Project-based learning has always been a very big passion of
Yeah,
mine.
yeah.
I love so many core principles of, there's different ways to do it, but the fact that it can be authentic, it can be self-directed. What are your thoughts about the role that AI might be able to play in project-based learning?
Oh, I'm actually super excited about AI and project-based learning. Look, nobody questions that project-based learning isn't a great thing to do, right? We know it's a great thing to do. We have data that shows it. We have evidence that shows it. Like kids love it. Like we know that it's the right thing to do. Why don't people do it? Because it's really hard.
Yeah, to do it
It
right.
takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of planning. It's hard to do. And
Yep.
one of the things that I'm excited about is that I think AI can actually help make project-based learning a lot easier to pull
Hmm.
off logistically, right? I can go in and say, please help me design a learning experience, a learning activity that is based on this topic and this project, right? And we need to cover these. And you can even put in here are the curriculum goals, the standards that we're trying to reach.
Yep.
This is the theme of the project. Generate some activities that we can do. And it can even do, I think there's another level of this, which is project-based learning also can be tailored to individual needs and interests of students. And so you can say,
Right,
not
right.
only generate this great piece of project-based learning, but also how could it be tailored to students who are interested in this or who struggle at
Yep,
math
yep.
or who are,
Yeah, yeah.
you want to work more in groups versus alone. Like that level of planning and preparation is something that AI can help with. And I think when we can reduce the level of effort for project-based learning, it will be much easier to see it be used much more frequently.
Yeah, that's a great point. I didn't think about putting that in my book either, but it's such a great point. Teaching, like not only using it as a tool for teaching, but helping kids learn how to use AI for their own projects.
Sure.
Like all the different concepts of learning, especially the inquiry process, as you're, going through a project. I just feel like it's so incredibly empowering for students to be able to learn how to do that. And I don't know if I think the process will become easier with the advent of different AI tools. Um,
We'll see, but I certainly hope it will. And I'm seeing some
Yeah.
things in the works that make me feel pretty optimistic that that will be the case.
Well, and that makes me think too, software is exploding so much faster than ever. And I feel like it's only a matter of time until there's a handful of really like well-known, powerful project-based learning tools or apps that, for kids to use and teachers to use. It's probably also embedded in most large language models, like the ability to structure it. And of course, we have a whole bunch of different humongous companies that are creating AI platforms for schools and that's also integrated in there as well in a more structured environment. Okay, what are some of your favorite AI tools and techniques? Like what's your go-to for some of the tools and techniques that you like to use it for?
I mean, I play with all the tools. I love to try all the different, there's sort of the kind of four big major models that people use, but also lots of other smaller apps that are being created on top of those. And I just think the more I can play with the better. Some of the things that I like to do are I like to prompt AI to help me recognize my blind spots, right? Here's something that I've written. If someone were to read it and disagree with me, what would they, based on what I've written here, why? What would they say? Right? That's a
Mm,
really a, a
hmm
a really great one. Another thing that's helpful to do is on the tools that save your search history, and some do and some don't, and that's a choice that you can make. But I have some tools that I use where it saves my search history. You can ask it to reflect on things that you have asked. I can say, are there types of tasks that it seems like I'm struggling with based on all of the things that I've asked you in the last year, right? So there's
hmm
some meta-analysis of my own human performance that can be interesting to
hmm
consider. So those are interesting tasks. I also think when there are I think there's this idea, and this is actually something I mentioned in the profile of an AI graduate, which is leveling information to be correct. I think that's for so long, for my entire life, I've always put up with information that has been too far below my understanding, or
hmm
much more often too far above my understanding of a topic.
Right,
And
right,
so
right.
so and we just live with the idea that there's a bunch of information I cannot access because it's written at a level that's above or below
Yeah, yeah.
where I'm at. That is something that we do not have to accept anymore. And so the other day
Right.
I got a bunch of data back from a doctor's appointment, right? Blood tests and a bunch of other stuff. It was all, by law. I have access to my data thanks to the regulations, but I've never understood any of it, right?
Right.
Never. So, I threw it into AI and I said, look at this. What are some questions that I should be asking, right? If
Yeah,
I
yeah.
understood this better, if I understood what I was reading, what are some questions? And it came with some really interesting insights that I wasn't able to come up with because it was at a level that maybe a doctor could understand, but certainly I couldn't. And so
Mm.
that idea of leveling up and leveling down content, I think, is something that I use it for all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fascinated recently with personalization and memory capabilities. I mean, Google just, not too long ago announced, you can connect all of your your email and all your data that you've given them
Yeah.
with their system. And then I know ChatGPT has the ability to remember things, and I've been using it, and I don't know about any other models. I don't think Perplexity is integrated memory yet, but man alive, the difference it's making with my use of ChatGPT with memory,
Yeah.
it's pretty profound. I also have a laptop, Pilot PC, uh, Pilot Plus PC or whatever it's called, that if you allow it can, read your screenshots and
Yeah.
kind of predict. Now I just got the laptop, so I haven't integrated that ability yet, but I can just see that there's going to be more and more personalization of AI. And I don't know what that's going to look like, but I just have a feeling it's going to have a pretty big impact, especially as it like caters to our specific,
Yeah.
needs for whatever we're trying to learn or do.
Totally. Totally.
Okay, last question. What advice would you give some new librarians or some people that are aspiring to be a librarian? What advice would you have for them?
Oh, wow. I mean, what a great question. I think recognizing the role that powerful role librarians can play as somebody who is really driving innovation in schools in a way that is much harder for any other person in the building to do. And really embracing that. I think that is something that I would encourage. There's this very sort of unique ability because it's one of the few people, other than the principal, who has this ability to cross-cut everybody. The
Mm,
librarians work with everyone, all of the students, all of the teachers. Again, nobody else really has that, and
right.
that allows you to start to think about how do you bring innovation into schools in a way around learning, right? Around
Hmm.
this, how learning works, how we think, how we ask questions, how we approach problems, how we problem solve. That's powerful, and the more librarians can embrace that role, the
Mm,
more they can really help not just help kids, but sort of shift their whole schools
hmm.
towards being ready for a very different future than the one that we would have imagined even a few years ago.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a great point because it's been a while since I've been a new librarian. Well, I've been a new librarian in new schools and everything,
Sure.
but there's that, you know, it's easy to get overwhelmed when you're new, and I can just see like not going out of your way to interact with all of the teachers, and I think it takes a little time to get to know all, depending on how many students you have in your school,
Sure.
but yeah, like going out of your comfort zone to reach and network and build relationships is so meaningful, especially as people try to grapple with what AI might mean,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
their environment. So, all right, if anyone wanted to reach out to you, how would they how can they find you to learn more or get in
I,
touch?
and I'm pretty easy to find on the social medias, Instagram, LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out. That's probably the best way to do it. And always happy to hear from people. Always happy to hear ideas. So if there are other thoughts that anybody has, just feel free to reach out. And always want to hear what's going on out in the world.